Okay. Hi, guys. Hi, everybody. We have quite a few people already joined in. I hope you're all doing well. It's wonderful to see you all here. We're really excited for the workshop. Arpita has already joined us, and we hope you guys get the most out of it. We'll wait for a few more people to join, and then we'll start with the whole thing. Meanwhile, I'd love to know where all are people joining in from. What do you guys do? Please drop it in the chat. Introduce yourself. It'll be great to know everybody. Yeah, guys, please turn on your cameras. It's really weird to see dead screens. Hi, myself, Ratnadeep from Vadodara. Hi, Ratnadeep, how are you? Please turn on your cameras so we can see you. A lot of people from Gujarat. Hi, Rajba. Majjama, ekdam majjama, all good. I would love to know how many people on the workshop are already a part of our community, Sandskriti. It will be really great if we know some familiar faces, if we've met in the previous meetups, workshops. Hi, Rashi, how are you doing? I'll quickly see. Guys, please turn on your cameras. We'd love to see how you guys look. It's better to interact with people that way. Also, quickly just answer the poll that we put up if you're part of our tribe or not. And if you're not, we'd really love for you to join us. It's a great community and you will have a lot of fun joining us. We keep doing all these kind of interactive workshops, meetups, and we keep connecting with a lot of experts from the industry, and you'll really enjoy connecting with us. And you'll become a part of our family, so that's the fun part. Hi, Ankit. You're a part of the community. That's great. Hi, Zainab, fresher in the design field. I would love to join. Yeah, for sure. We'd be really happy for you to join us and become a part of our community. So a lot of exciting things are coming up within the community. We're doing a lot of things apart from the workshop that we have today. We have a really big thing happening, and we are super, super excited about it. I'll quickly let you guys, in on that and, brief you about it. Just give me a second. I hope my screen is visible. Just a second. Yeah, so like I was saying, a really big thing is coming up for all the designers of the country, which is the Pan India Designathon Vibex that we are doing. It is something that we have, come up with on a really large scale. It's going to be world's largest designathon in terms of the participation that we're expecting, and the kind of energy that will be involved, the kind of mentors who would be involved. We're doing this offline in 10 plus cities, and it's going to be massive. Almost around 3,000 participants will be joining the entire competition. And it's going to be a great platform for everybody to join in and, showcase what you've got as a designer. We're, on the hunt of finding that X factor of design, and it's really going to be a great challenge of creativity. So I would love for you all to register. And, we're doing this in almost every part of the country. So whichever city that you belong to, you can join us offline and you can become part of this entire competition. It is going to give you a lot of exposure in terms of the kind of problems that you will be tackling and, the kind of designers that you will be competing with. And it's going to, apart from all of this, it's going to give you that national platform as a designer to, present yourself and showcase what you've got. So, and apart from that, there's like an exciting prize for the winning team. So I don't think as a designer you would want to miss out on this opportunity. So please do register for it and join us for this competition, and we're going to have a vibe as we promise as a community. So here's the QR for you guys to quickly register. And do let us know if you have any questions regarding this. You can check out our page on the website. There's a lot of information over there, and you'll get to know the kind of scale that we're looking at, the kind of mentors who are going to join us. Arpita herself is going to join us in one of the cities. So it's going to be a great opportunity for everybody to join. Um, I think we are going to start with the workshop. Just a second. Okay. Is my screen still visible? Okay. I somehow can't stop sharing. Just give me a second, guys. Doesn't stop. Nothing works. Doesn't work. Nothing's working. Oh, I'm so sorry, guys. I think my system is crashed and nothing's working. Just give me a sec. It's stuck. Okay, I think it's working. Yeah, cool. Sorry for the glitch, guys. Okay, so I think quite a lot of people have joined, and we'll start with the workshop. Okay, so I'm really excited for this, and let me quickly introduce Arpita. Hi, Arpita. It's lovely for you to join us.
Thank
And
you.
Arpita is currently the lead designer at ADP, and she's been mentoring people since quite a long time. ADPList, sorry. Yeah, and she's been mentoring with a lot of designers, and she's been in the industry, and she's had an experience with product marketing and solving complex problems for businesses. And it is a pleasure for our community to have her join us as a mentor and share her expertise. And it's our pleasure to connect all you guys with her and do this thing. So Arpita, I'd love for you to take this forward and yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shruti, for the warm welcome. Like, it's really nice to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Very fun community for sure. I'm excited for what more you folks are going to do. So, hi everyone. I'm Arpita. I am going to start with an introduction quickly, but before that, I was wondering, can I see some of your faces? Like,
Yeah, please.
also, Shruti,
Uh,
I can't see you.
you can't see me. Okay.
Yeah, it seems to be a white screen.
Oh, okay. Let me try it again. Am I visible now?
No, not at least to me.
Am I visible to anybody, guys?
Yeah, you visible.
Oh, okay. Uh,
Interesting. All right. I can see Arya. I can see Utsav. Where are the more faces? There are like how many? 58 of us. Om, Ankit. Thank you all for turning on your cameras. The more faces I can see, the more interactive it'll be. I wouldn't have to look at the chat all the time. So
yeah.
let's try to keep more cameras open. So I'm going to share my screen so that we can have a more methodic approach to starting this. Is everyone able to see my screen?
Yeah. Guys, it's this is not going to be like a lecture from her, so it's going to be an interactive session. So please be active, turn on your cameras and respond. It's going to be great if you guys are interactive.
Yes, that would be super helpful. And like I said, the more I can see, the more I can understand what you're understanding as well, right? Just before we get started, some housekeeping rules for the session. Feel free to add your questions on the Q&A.
Yeah, on the Q&A. Whatever questions you have related to the topic, anything, just drop it on the Q&A and we'll take it up one by one whenever we have the Q&A time.
For sure. Thank you so much. Anytime I ask a question, which is for a yes and no answer, try to engage on the chat. If your videos are on, you can also do a thumbs up, whatever works. Any quick feedback works in this process. All
Yeah.
right, great. Let's get started. So, today we're going to be talking about one of the uh, closer topics to me. Like every time I have started mentoring, I think that's where most of my conversations start. That how did you get to this problem statement? And it seems like something has gone wrong in this process, that it has defined your entire project a certain way. And a lot of times, I think that's what makes a weak case study, the bias from the very beginning of the problem statement. So, what we're going to talk about today is how to fight that and start on a good foot in a way, right? That is what we are going to be talking about. So, are you all here with me? You can hear me, see me. Everything is good. We can get started.
All good, all good.
Awesome, great. So before we dive into the topic, I will give a little bit of an introduction about myself. Shruti has already shared a little about me. I have been the design lead at ADPList for 3 years now. We are a small team. We are a mentorship product where we enable one-on-one mentorship, and we want to do more every year. So uh, that's where I have been actively mentoring as well, and a few other organizations in the last 3 years, where I have met a lot of people who have helped me do this session today in a way. I don't think it'll be possible to even share this with you if I wouldn't have shared it or answered it for so many people all this while. So that's how we are here today, and I love how it comes full circle, at least in my life. On a side note, uh, I did pursue psychology and try to understand the depth of how to understand human beings, not just for design, but for myself and for life in general. Uh, I also like horse riding. I also like interior designing, a lot of things here and there. I binge watch as well, guys. I'm in the binge watching thing. I'm also into dance and photography. I try to keep myself busy with non-digital things during weekends, when because my whole week goes in front of a screen. So that's how I try to engage. So if any of you office fans, say hi.
Hi.
So yeah, that's a little about me. I think that's how I ran into Sandskriti, I think, as well. And I'm excited how I can help you do more of what I love doing. right? So thank you so much, guys, for having me here. It's really, really nice to see all, I think, 60 odd people who we are going to have a good conversation, hopefully, today. At
Yeah.
any point of time, anyone wants to ask something immediately about a topic we are having, you can also raise your hand. I
Yeah.
would, too many of you, but if like it's a really urgent need and you want a clarification, you can raise your hand and I can engage with it for if it is urgent. All right. So feel free to share openly what you are understanding and not understanding. Great. So awesome. To get started, like I think all of you will be wondering, why am I talking about problem statements? So I'll give you a little bit of crux on why this is important first, right? I think it's a mandatory skill. The reason it is so mandatory is because if you don't define your problem well, you don't get to your result well, right? And that's a loop you don't want to get stuck in, especially when you work with fast paced environments, right? And what I want to share today is, as of today, you may not be amazing at it. It is possible that you are struggling to find a good problem statement, that you are not able to understand how to get started. You might just be like, I want to design a task management app, a habit building application. Those are not great problem statements, but it's okay to be there right now. You just have to mindfully practice this behavior, right? Where you want to frame better problem statements with a certain frameworks that we already have at our disposal. Great. So I suddenly see nobody. So I'm going to continue talking nonetheless.
Yeah,
Hopefully
I think it's the network. We're able to see people.
you are. Oh, that's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
interesting. Barely able to see anybody.
It must be because you spotlighted yourself, I guess. So
Ah, let me see if I can change the view somehow.
Uh, you
All
can
right.
go to, yeah.
Yeah, this is better. Cool. All right. So, getting to why it is an important skill for us, I think one of the most important parts about crafting a clear problem statement is, yes, what can I solve? I can solve a task for a task management app, I can solve for a food delivery app, but that is not a deep question. Like, it is just like surface level at best. Like if I ask, if Shruti comes to me and she's like, she's upset or something like that, and I go like, so what can I do for you? She may not even know what I can do for her. And I cannot probably solve any problem for her because I don't even understand what her problem is to solve it, right? So I will have to understand deeper questions and get to the root cause of what is causing Shruti distress today. It could be the internet. It could be, why is Arpita not clearly visible? Why can't she see people? Like small things like that. But she may not be able to instantly come up with a solution. So crafting good problems will allow me to help her better, right? If I can take her problem, understand it, define it, it'll allow me to get everything much, much better, right? So, with having said that, let's do a quick poll of how do you think we can ensure clarity and precision while crafting a problem statement? Like, what are your guesses? Let's let's try this.
We'll put up a poll, guys. Answer there, I think.
Let's see. So there are like four options. I would like for all of you to like share what you think the answer is. There are 65 of you, so I need at least 60 responses.
Come on, guys, take wild guesses. You don't need to be right.
Yes, that's what we are here for today. 11, okay. Fairly, interesting. At least 60 responses. Come on, you can do it.
Come on, guys. We won't know what you've answered, so you can just go ahead with whatever you think is right.
5 W's and 1 H is what, who, why, where, how. You don't have to worry about knowing it, just take a guess. Wrong
Okay,
answer.
quite a
but
lot of answers. See.
all right, let's go with half the people are at least alive and present in this call
Yes,
on a Saturday afternoon. How many of you have had biryani?
not biryani, but rice.
Oh, yes, rice is putting you to sleep, guys.
You guys
But
made it to the workshop. You can interact and make the most of it out of it. Come on.
dal bhat, Hiran, what are you saying? Dal bhat is something that comforts me so much that I will sleep for a few days.
Agreed,
Awesome.
agreed.
Great. Thank you for all the responses. I think it's great to see that most of you are on track with what we are going to talk about. Most of you have a gist. You have been following Sanskriti's page. I can surely say that. Um, but let's move on and answer. You are, I think, about 83%, 89% of you are right. It is deep diving and identifying smaller problems. I will speak a little bit about why it's not the other four. Yeah, like before we get into why it's to deep dive, let's talk about the four options here. First one is by focusing on what solutions would be cool, right? Can somebody say what could be possibly wrong with that? Shruti, you want to take a guess?
By focusing on what solutions would be cool, I think more than you think of a solution when you really understand the problem. So if you've not understood the problem, whatever you think is a solution is not really the solution. So I think that.
That is answered beautifully. I think that's exactly what it is. Like in general, if I think that somebody needs something, it's my bias, it's my assumption. So we cannot quite define the solution before we understand the problem, right? So cool solutions hopefully will be your outcome if you frame a good problem statement, right? That is
Right.
what you're working towards. We are all problem solvers in UX. So obviously, if you understand the problem well, you can get a cool solution for sure. Cool in the sense of something that looks cool but works for the
Well,
user,
for the users, yeah.
good also for the users, and improves your business. In the end of the day, your business is what you're working towards, right? So that's great. So that's nice. So the next one is sorry, thinking solely about finishing the project quickly. This is a common problem I have seen when all of us are trying to build our first few case studies. I can you all tell me in the chat how long did you take for your first to publish your first project case study? On the chat, if you can just give me a timeline, 1 week, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, like how long did you take to do the project?
Guilty of doing it in 1 month.
Guilty, don't be guilty, don't be guilty. The first time I'm asking.
Oh, okay.
It's absolutely fine. I think 1 month is very good, Shruti.
Great.
Awesome, awesome, great. So everyone who took 1 week or maybe 2 weeks during the first project, how much time did you actually spend analyzing your steps? Like
Anyone from the audience?
yeah, anyone less than 3 weeks who has said, like you're doing all these steps for the first time, right? You are trying to be a problem solver for the first time. You're trying to do a project for the first time. Like, how long did it take for you to study in that process?
Anyone from the audience wants to raise your hand?
3-4 days. Wow, that's um I am curious to talk to Raj, are you open to sharing more about how did you manage to understand problem solving in 3-4 days?
Just a second. Raj, you can unmute yourself and answer. Raj, you're mute. We can't hear you, Raj. You're on mute.
You can try the chat as well. I wouldn't
Yeah, you
mind.
can. Yeah, you can answer on the chat.
Yeah. I like the last answer that we just got.
Hello.
If I
Hello,
say-
am I audible?
yeah, you're audible.
Yeah, Arpita, I was saying that first of all, I have to research what exactly is the problem. Means what is about it, and then is there any such problem exist और किसी और ने भी प्रॉब्लम फेस किया है पास्ट में, उसके ऊपर रिसर्च करके फिर उसके पास्ट में उन्होंने क्या स्टेप लिया था
Yeah. So how
पॉसिबल हो
इसको 3-4 दिन में कैसे किया?
अभी तो फिलहाल एआई का जमाना आ गया है, चैट जीपीटी जिंदाबाद.
Oh my God. All right. Okay. I will get to that bit in a bit. Thanks for
Yeah.
answering, Raj. That was really, really helpful. Thank you for
Yes.
being so candid.
और दूसरा वो एआई का एक वो टूल भी आता है ना, वो क्या स्मिथ समथिंग ऐसा कुछ नाम है, वो हेल्प करते हैं, पर्सोना क्रिएट कर देता है हम जो लिखते हैं उसके अकॉर्डिंग, और उससे हम इंटरेक्ट कर सकते हैं, उससे पूछ सकते हैं.
Got
Great,
it. Got
got it.
Thank you, Raj.
Thank you, Raj. Thank you.
Awesome. So just to now share a little bit of that, like why thinking solely about finishing the problem through this method can be a little harmful because you're still working with your own assumptions. You're still working with your own bias. You're still working with the ideas that you think people have. You don't actually have factual information because personas are a creation of your, it's a data analysis method, right? So there has to be data that is actual. I have to actually have surveys, or I would have to have articles or reviews and things like that, see a type of user, which type of user does what, right? So the reason why this option is even here is because most of the time we need to question what we are doing in the process as well. We have multiple small problem statements that happen in our day to day of solving a problem statement as well, right? So if you use AI and you are feeding information to the AI, it's you are the user. But that's not the case in UX, right? You are never the user. You are the person who is solving the problem. You're the problem solver, right? So the second one doesn't work because of that. And finally, relying on personal assumptions is something that I already touched base on right now when we were talking. You act on your own bias. You think this will be cool, this will be nice. I think this is going to like do really well. And it might for some people also, but you might not know why it worked or why it failed, right? So there is a different conversation about personal assumptions. That is a bias related conversation. But today, let's talk about how can we be more mindful so that we don't let our biases come in, right? Great. Everyone's doing great so far. That is really, really good. Thank you for engaging. Awesome. Let's move to the next conversation. That is, how do we deep dive? Like, how do we actually get into deep diving? One of the things that was mentioned is 5 Ws and 1H framework. It is something that is very commonly used in the sense that you are always saying, why did this happen? How did this happen? Why is this happening to me? Who did this to me? Where did this happen to you? This happens every time you are faced with a problem. One of these questions come out of your mouth just to get more clarity, right? So moving on to the first one, who is facing the problem? Whenever you come up with a prompt, let's say that I noticed something is wrong in the food delivery industry, right? And if I say something is wrong in the food delivery industry, there could be something wrong in every pipeline to many different types of users using multiple different products like Swiggy, Zomato, God knows what not is there nowadays, right? So keeping that in mind, how do I filter it down? I filter it down by saying, okay, let me go find a group of people who are facing a particular problem, right? Or I have already found the problem, but now I need to go find the group of people who could be possibly facing it, right? After I find out who is facing it, I might want to know what exactly is the high level problem that this particular group of people is facing. Like from the 70 of you, 4 of you might have group order requirement. 5 of you might want to add more than certain addresses to make multiple deliveries on the way, right? Different people, different problems. Some of you might want a subscription service because you are having a very tough time ordering food. Like there are different solutions for different problems. No, this is not competitor analysis, Raj. This is identifying who is facing a problem. What your competition is doing is a secondary thing. When your competition also becomes a type of who, but that question will be who is doing what currently in the food delivery business, or who is doing what in a food delivery application, right? What I am trying to focus on is who is facing this problem. So I can identify maybe that really busy individuals who don't have the time to, let's say, I have a packed meeting day, right? Have a back-to-back calls. They are continuously on the go. They possibly won't be cooking. So can I get a way for them to start eating more? And if they mean eating more is equal to more business, then I have to identify what is making them eat less, right? From Swiggy or a Zomato, right? So I will first identify who, business individuals, what, getting less access to food, and have malnutrition probably. So that is the high level problem. This could be my assumption as well. This could be my research question as well, right? And when does this happen? It happens because they are in between meetings, they are not able to manage their time. And this could be from something that I have noticed. Like, for example, yesterday Shruti texts me saying that I have a meeting. Can I meet you after this meeting? I kind of identify she's a busy individual. It's quite obvious. I can go and ask her, have you been eating your meals properly? And if she says no, I'll ask her, why aren't you ordering? Right? That is how I want to understand when it happens. Like she'll say that this meeting was there, this meeting was there, and in between I couldn't make time for it, right? That is the when. So there could be some requirement to understand at which duration of this person's life does this problem even happen. You might not always need a cab, so Uber is very situational, right? Getting an Uber or an Ola is very situational. But you always are on social media. So the when is like more larger in terms of bandwidth. But for Uber, it is very like fixed. If I want to go to office at 8 o'clock, I'll not look for an Uber all day. I will look for it maybe at 7:30, right? So when is very important as well. Finally, where does it happen? This is the last resort in certain ways that you will want to understand if at all this is happening. Is it happening to them throughout the day? Like, is it like anxiety that is perpetual? Or is it something that happens, let's say, when I go to my kitchen and I'm trying to cook, I realize that my knife is not sharp. That is very situational. That's an environmental problem. I only encounter it when I want to cook. I don't have it in my heart the whole day that, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? So where is also sometimes important. It's a very small metric, but it's still important, right? So finally, the last W is why. Why is it happening? So let's try to put certain who, what, whys together, right? So who is facing the problem? Busy individuals. What is their problem? They have a lot of meetings, right? Because of which they are not able to order food in time, right? Uh, the why over here is they have a lot of meetings and time is less. Ordering food requires time. So, how can we help manage their time becomes our primary concern. The why behind the what. So, are we clear till here? Do you understand the who, why, and what?
Guys,
I,
quickly give a thumbs up if you understand.
great. So, busy individuals have back-to-back meetings. They are in office or probably they're on the go. It happens almost twice in a day, you can assume, maybe for breakfast and lunch, right? Because dinner, most of them might go back home, or it could be a workaholic who does lunch and dinner, and breakfast might be at home, but there is a where as well. And finally, the why is because they don't have time. We have kind of set that in place already. So now, when you look at solving this person's problem, you're going to empathize with them at a very deep level, right? You're going to empathize with them in a way that they can also understand, okay, hey, uh, these are my high level problems. Yes, that is what is happening, right? So I'm going to share a small example on the chat. You can all try asking me a question if there is any doubt on it. Let me just share it on the chat. Hold on a second.
Guys, just raise your hands and we'll allow you to unmute yourself.
Right. So I have given an example on the chat below. Can you all see it? Awesome. Great. What we are trying to understand over here is the final thing that we write is how. How is a process. So I'm not getting too deep into the how. This is how we are actually going to solve the problem. So we don't need to get into the how, but it's the four W's that are very important. So I have picked about three W's over here. What? It is very difficult to pick up culinary skills. Who? Working professionals who live alone away from their hometown want to pick up cooking skills. Where? Can be already specified in the who, away from their hometown. When does it happen? Like I said, breakfast, lunch, twice a day, thrice a day, it will be happening. Why is it happening? Because it can be very daunting to start if you have never cooked before and you want to eat ghar ka khana, like what your mom used to make. You want that, but if you are sad that if you make it and it doesn't taste the same, effort is also put, taste is also not there, काम भी किया है आज, right? So that's what ends up happening. uh, so to answer Sutar's question quickly on this note, I would recommend all the W's to be fairly answered. Like even in my who, I have already added my
Where?
where and when in a way, right? Like it is already there. There is a context for me. How is your problem solving approach? How is basically your entire design process? Okay, that is what how is. So you don't need to answer H, you need to answer the W's. Like right now, you can see the screen that is shared. It says how is the methods, tools, or approaches that can be employed to address the problem. That's your design process. All right, that's the one that you generally study about. This is the part that comes before it. When your product managers and your designers sit down in a company and they are like, what are we going to do? This is what they start doing. They start identifying these, okay, who is facing the problem? Why is it happening? When did we see this happen? Like those kind of questions immediately get defined because that aligns us all. Like we are all like, okay, this is what we are solving for. So if you can see with the what, who, and why, I have given a dummy problem statement. Many young adults move to a new city for their careers, struggle with picking up cooking skills. How might we help them gain confidence in managing their meals at home? This problem statement has been generated from the what, who, why, where, and when, right? And then that's how you will get to your how. So, whenever you are writing a problem statement, don't write, I want to give them a meal planning application. Because they have not asked for it. I have not told this anywhere. I am trying to remove the bias from the problem statement. You can, whenever you start with a good problem, right, what ends up happening is one problem can lead to 10 outcomes. Always 10, 20 outcomes, n number of outcomes, let's call it one problem. But one solution, if you start with a solution, no matter what you do in the whole process, you're going to land right there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess.
So if I have a problem, let's say, how might we help them gain confidence in managing their meals? You can think of multiple ways that you can help them gain confidence in managing their meals. You might want to give them recipes. You might want to give them a YouTube channel. You might want to give them a gamified version of an application. It could be anything, right? To help them gain confidence. But if I say I want to give them a meal planning app, I end up in a meal planning app. I have not considered anything else that could be there possibly on the way, right?
Yeah.
Does that clarify, give you all some understanding?
Give a thumbs up, guys, if you agree to it.
If you
Great.
disagree, then ask a question.
Yeah. If anybody has a question, you can raise your hand.
I had seen, I think
Yeah,
somebody.
Rashi, I think Rashi wanted to ask a question.
Yes. Hi, Rashi.
I'm back to pick your brain again.
Yes. Rashi and I share a long history.
Oh, is it so?
Yes,
Great.
yes.
So, for my portfolio, I am working on a problem statement which I observed around me. Being a student, final year student at an engineering college, I see me and myself and my friends struggle a lot in navigating their semesters. Their own skills, exams, assignments, practicals, etc., co-curricular, everything. So, while I was researching how people do it, I observed a pattern that if people are using a certain product initially, for example, they chose Notion to plan their semester and navigate through it. The motivation to continue using it goes away after a certain period of time, and then they switch to a completely different product, which is either a whiteboard, sticky notes, or their personal diary.
Got it.
So, and if they are using diaries initially, then they'll switch to a Notion template or any digital product.
They're basically switching between different mediums. Got it.
So the final problem statement that I could come to was that there is no product convenient enough which helps them continue using it
Right.
throughout
Got
the
it.
semester. Am I going in the right direction?
That is a very good question. Thank you for bringing that up. That really, I will ask you a couple of questions now, right?
Okay.
You came to me with this problem statement. I think it's a very good way to find a problem statement, right? Now I'm going to ask you, you can probably write it down so that we can post it on the chat as well, or however you can manage. Um, First thing, you said you and your friends, right? Can you tell me what kind of people are you talking about exactly? Because I don't know your friends.
Okay. I'll
I think you
define
don't have to answer it immediately. You can type that down, right? Who are we talking
sure.
about over here? So Who would be something where you don't name them, where you take like their, let's go to the slide which talks about who, right? Group of user. Who is this niche? If you had to pick a type of people, who is this niche? That is your who. The reason I'm asking who it is, because a person who is like a pendulum is one type of user, right? Someone could be very focused. Someone, like, they may not be in your friend circle, but they could be focused and they may not be like a pendulum. They might make a decision, they might make a commitment, and they will make sure they get to the end of it. Clearly, these are not the kind of people you are targeting. You are targeting the pendulums, the one who are not able to be, cannot. I'll get to the what is the problem. The problem with the pendulums is that we are calling this group pendulums. Let's call it a persona, however it is. The problem with the pendulum is that they cannot commit. And when does this happen? When they fail at committing, they switch.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Where does this happen? It happens probably in their college scenario, you said during a semester, right?
Yeah.
So probably during exams, probably during planning their day, classes, assignment submissions, co-curricular activities, whatever it is. In those touch points, they are failing. Why is this happening? Because it is a commitment issue which affects their productivity. That immediately hits their productivity. That is why they are switching into, like, let's find another productive medium.
Yeah. I saw one more observation, which was people who are planning in a chunk of 2 to 3 months or the whole semester. Something comes up and their schedule goes haywire, and then they lose the motivation to continue using the template they have been using.
Motivation is also a good thing. So when you are writing this problem statement, you kind of have to make sure you have all these aspects answered in it, so that when you frame that problem statement, you would say that people who have low motivation but want to get productive face an issue whenever they try to use a medium to improve their task management. Right? How might we help them get consistent, get committed, and find a fun way to enjoy this while motivating them?
Right. Right.
So now you have to think of ways to motivate them. Now you have to think of ways to make them consistent. Now you have to think of ways to improve commitment. That means habit building is required,
Yeah.
right? So many things, like, because they don't have a habit, they
Yeah.
fail, then they need motivation. It's like a whole, like, thing.
Yeah.
Right? So when you have the who, what, why, writing this problem statement becomes easier. So instead of writing that, let me give them a routine planner or a routine tracker or something like that, you will say, how might we make them more consistent, committed, and also enjoy the process and see where they are winning, right? Or
Yes.
see how, what keeps them motivated, so that they know they are doing well. Identify their wins, right? And identification of wins can be done in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Right? Motivation can be given in so many different ways. Consistency can be given just with push notifications. You don't even need a feature, right?
Yes.
Small things like that is important. Duolingo is a good example. Duolingo is has created. I was talking to, I don't know how many of you know Rishika, the cloud doodle on Twitter. The
Yeah.
other, so Rishika and I are Duolingo family. Okay, we are the people who are paying money for Duolingo because Duolingo has kind of understood that we just need small wins in life, and we will get threatened when we see that angry face saying your streak is
Yeah.
going to drop.
Yeah,
Like,
got it.
they have really understood us. Like, they know that if I can make them fear me, I can make them study anything. Even if you give 5 minutes every day, it works, right?
Yeah.
And it's a very nice, strict parent, Simarpreet, actually. It does it only in the last 1 hour, it's an angry face. The whole day, it's very kind. It's like, I'm trying, don't test my patience, right? So I think it's a very good way to understand that one product as well, Rashi. You are working on a problem statement, right? So when you're working on a problem statement, you might come up with a solution which fits in an existing product, or you might
Hmm.
need a product entirely for it.
Hmm.
But in general, in cases of Duolingo and things like that, our problem statements in companies like ADPList that I work with is very specific to business. So, for
Hmm.
example, this quarter we identified that mentee retention is not doing that well, right? Our mentees are not committed enough. We also identified that the problem is because learning is not something we can teach. Learning is something which has to be proactive. For everyone watching, Rashi is my proactive mentee. Okay, we have had that kind of an equation. So
Thank you.
because she is proactive, she is ready to keep learning. But I cannot put that quality into someone else, or I cannot teach that to someone else. It's a little difficult. So, what are we going to do is we have to frame a problem statement which helps us identify how to improve consistency. Put our focus on consistency, put our focus on understanding what their use cases are, what their issues are, and then framing a problem, right? We have to frame a problem for a particular type of mentees that we want to retain. We have over like 60, 70,000 mentees on the platform coming in, going out. How are we going to solve for everyone? We can't. So I might focus on maybe mentees only like Rashi, that she is coming every 2 months, let's say. Can I make sure that I can get her maybe once more between these 2 months? Like, can I see what makes her come back the next time? So I will try to focus on maybe the proactive mentees first before I go to the ones who are not as proactive, right? So that's how we solve the who in companies, because we are trying to build, we don't go and build personas every time. We need to literally sit down and have these personas ready. That, do we want to target a proactive mentee? Do we want to target a one time mentee? Do we want to target a brand building mentor, or a forever giving mentor? Like, we have to figure who we want to solve for, who is important for us that time. And based on the who, the what always changes, the why always changes, right? Any mentor who is a brand building mentor may not actually want to do as many sessions, right? So I may not want to target them if I want to boost my bookings. If I want to boost my bookings, I'll go to the forever giving mentors, because they will do the calls no matter what. Like, if Rashi pings me, hey, I fall in that category of persona. I have identified that also. Self-awareness, guys. It's important when you work for a product you actually build for.
Yeah.
So I fall in that category. And anytime anyone pings me, hey, can we do a call this week? I'll be like, okay, fine, let's see what time we can find. I can't say no. And I know my friends who say no. They do it so well, they do it so politely, and their mentees don't even mind, but they have it sorted. Right? So both of us have such different problems. It's so different. They might be having time management issues. I am very good at time management somehow. That is why I'm getting away with it,
Yeah.
right? So these small things are quite interesting to observe when you work for a company. So try to see that when you're working on your problem statement also. Don't try to create a generic solution thinking that it'll work for everyone. So I think Rashi, for you, everything was correct except like identifying that who. Then me and my friends became a little open-ended,
Got it.
right? Awesome. Great. So moving on to the next segment a little bit.
Yeah.
How do we deep dive even further? We can deep dive further by breaking the problem, right? So all of you on the chat, I think I should have actually put that problem statement somewhere on my slides. Anywho, the
We
problem,
pin that up. Yeah.
yeah, sorry, I that was a afterthought, so I completely missed it. So many young adults move to a new city for their careers and struggle with picking up cooking skills. Okay, that is the high level problem statement. It's very high level. They are struggling to pick up cooking skills. Why? That like you will be actually surprised that the answers might be very simple, right? They just might be scared, they just might be lazy, they just might not have the right recipes, they don't know what to trust, like those kind of things, just could be the issues. So you will first start identifying smaller problems from this big problem statement, right? And I generally have a very simple method of doing that. The method, I feel like switching my screen sharing a little bit. Should I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
We can let the audience interact. Yeah.
that's fine, right? Like I just want to show a rough document that I actually show everybody. So
Yeah, definitely.
Rashi will be like, same class is happening again for me. Let me see. I stopped sharing. I'm going to start sharing a tab. Right. So this is how I kind of start understanding. Are you all able to see a Google Doc by any chance?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is how I end up start thinking of questions. Okay, what is the problem? What are they? When is this happening? Why is this happening? What is good? Who are these type of people? What is their behavior when they're alone? When they're with a group? Is this happening only when they're alone? Where are they from? Tier 1 city, tier 2 city? Did they move from a tier 3 city to a tier 1 city? Because that could be very challenging. What are they doing now? Because I too have not come up with a solution. So they are managing and doing something. So how are they currently tackling it? Right? I keep breaking all of them down into different problems because of which this could be happening to them. Right? One of those questions also becomes, what are the competitors currently doing, which becomes your competitive analysis. I think, Raj, that is to answer a little bit of your question. These questions actually help us also ask, what did they do that helped them tackle the current problems? What is working for them? What is not working for them? Who are they solving for? Right? A Zomato and Swiggy do not have the same audience, weirdly. Even though they are the same product who does the same thing, they are solving different niches all the time, right? There is always a bias. You will notice there's a bias between which product somebody wants to use. It's because they understood a type of user and they are trying to solve for it, right? um, so that's how I kind of go about this. So I just wanted to show you, like, I try to identify all the problems that come into my little brain and I write them down. I don't just think them, I write them. It is important to write everything that you are thinking: who, what, why, where, how did this happen to them, like things like that, right? Great. So I'm going to go back to the presentation now. Are you all with me?
Everybody.
सब ठीक चल रहा है? Everyone understands Hindi in this group?
I guess so. Anybody who doesn't understand, I think basic टूटा फूटा तो सबको समझ आता होगा.
Okay, everybody, and I hope Can you do a quick poll? I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, for sure.
How many people understand Hindi so that I'll just like kind of get it in that. Awesome. All right. So moving on, how do we identify smaller problems, right? I showed you a rough framework of what I actually do. I kind of start asking a lot of questions. This is a process I have with myself. I keep asking, why is this happening? Okay, if these kind of people faced it, do they always keep happening? Does this always keep happening to them? Why is this happening suddenly to them? What were they doing before it? Those kind of questions, right? So for me, the first goal is very important. That is your high level problem statement, right? That in your high level problem statement, you break it down, you create sub problems, right? So, consistency, for example, if we say how to make a learner consistent, that is your goal, it is defined. Now, you write down what are the problems that are affecting this consistency or preventing this consistency from happening, right? These are the two steps. Like point number one, consistency is a problem. Great. Why is consistency a problem, right? And this can be done before your research, ideally, so that when you do it before your research, you identify your assumptions. This will also help as a question for your surveys and your interviews. Like you will try to understand that, okay, I noticed that you are not a consistent learner. Could you tell me a little bit about why, what affects your consistency, right? Because I had this assumption that maybe they party too much, maybe they are chilling a lot. Those are my assumptions. I'm not going to tell them those things. I'm never going to tell them those assumptions, but I have written them down while asking those questions. Like, they probably do this because of this, they have these things, that is why they are not consistent. And in the interview I ask them, okay, tell me what is affecting your consistency. And they'll be like, I'm actually doing two courses. I have a UX course going on the side, and I am doing my college degree with it. I'm probably the sole bread earner for my family in a couple of years, and I have like a side business going on, and I am helping my mom as well. Like, you suddenly empathize with them on another level when you can actually identify a few of your assumptions, right? This is what empathy means. Like, empathy means you tell me why this is happening to you. Don't go and tell them, I think I know what's happening to you. That doesn't help anyone, right? That is actually, that doesn't help your friends either. Your friends also need empathy from you when you go and tell them that, hey, uh, I notice this is happening. Why is this happening to you, right? You have to understand that the why is more comforting than a solution. Asking them a question is always more comforting in a tough situation than giving them, you should have done this, you could have done this, why didn't you do this? Right? That is never comforting. So the same thing applies in product as well, right? I hope that makes sense. But I will deep dive a little bit into how we can define a clear goal. um, do we need to answer questions after or before going for user survey? Suttar, just to give you a short disclaimer, you have to ask questions throughout the process. Right? The I will get to that a little bit in the coming slides, but keep in mind that nothing goes in problem solving without asking questions. Nothing. You ask it when you're framing the problem statement, who, what, why. You ask it when you're thinking about your assumptions. You ask it when you're creating your research, like what problems do I want to solve? What is it called? What problems do I want to solve? What kind of people do I want to talk to? What kind of questions do I want answered? This process is completely happening, right? throughout the problem solving process. So I would say user survey is also a type of question. You have to ask, why am I asking this survey question to users? What kind of answer am I expecting of it? Who are the kind of users that would possibly give what I'm expecting? Right? These are questions you should ask yourself. Great. Awesome. So
Karthik has put up a problem statement. I think we'll take it up later or
it
yeah,
later.
yeah.
To just chime into Mithilesh's comment, very fine line, empathy and sympathy. I have spoken about this in another video as well. I think a lot of times, whenever you think that someone needs a food delivery app when they are complaining about time management, you are doing sympathy with your own assumptions. You are like,
Yeah.
let me just give them something nice and they'll be fine, right? Every time you are going and asking a leading question to a user that tell me what features do you expect in the product, you are acting out of sympathy, right? So if you continuously ask yourself, what am I going to get out of this question? Am I trying to understand or am I trying to take a quick fix? Those
Yeah.
kind of things really help. Great. So let's move into how we can define a clear and measurable goal. So I think in general, you have to focus on a high level value. I think I mentioned this earlier when I was talking about in companies when we have to think about a particular type of people who are facing a particular type of pain point. It comes from a business objective. So data is showing that retention is lower than what you want. Then I want to understand what is the main high level pain point that I want to be focusing on. It has to be very specific. Specific in the sense, I have to clearly state that my members or learners are having a problem in consistency, right? I have to make sure it's measurable. How do I say they are inconsistent? They are inconsistent because they only show up once in 3 months, right? That is my measurable proof for inconsistency. How is it achievable? I will say that, can we try to at least get them once every month, right? Instead of saying I want them once every week, I will go from 3 months to monthly. Let's try from a quarterly to a monthly thing. It could be a high aim, but it's okay. It's still like achievable from our team's perspective. So we go with that. It should be relevant. So, how do we say relevance? If I say that consistency is the problem, is it directly impacting their learning? Is it directly impacting the bookings? Is it directly impacting the retention? If yes to all four, then it's relevant, right? And finally, I have to also set a deadline to it. Without a deadline, no problem remains for that long. If I don't try solving certain things fast, the problem might become stale. They will have new problems now, right? So we have to set deadlines also for achieving this consistency problem. It is possible that if someone who is not consistent already, if I don't act on solving for them because it's relevant, they might churn and drop off from the platform completely. Then my problem becomes getting them back. My problem is not consistency increasing anymore. It is reactivation or reacquisition, like getting the user back again becomes my problem. And I don't want that problem, right? So I need a deadline for sure, right? Are we clear? Are we good? Everyone understands?
Great.
Great. Awesome. Moving on to the second one, you have to identify the challenges that is preventing you from reaching this problem. That is how you generally figure out what is affecting their consistency. That is the goal, right? We had a goal of consistency. So what is affecting their consistency? So this is where I said you have to ask questions about your assumptions, then gather validated insights for them, right? You also have to identify in their environment day to day, where is the friction, right? If they are someone who is doing two courses, who is the sole bread earner of their family, these are friction points. This is not product friction, this is life friction. Life friction is stopping them from doing product action, right? You will have to find areas where they are confused. Like, for example, initially a lot of members of ADPList were confused that long term even is an option. Can I go and book a mentor again? Will that mentor mind? Right? That confusion, you have to identify that what is this? Maybe this confusion is what is stopping them. If I clear that confusion, I can probably solve the problem. It may not even be a big solution and it can be done really, really fast, right? I would also want to understand technical roadblocks. So, technical roadblocks could be something like currently you are not allowed to make a booking if you already have an active booking present. You cannot do that on the platform. That also could be stopping them, which could be like out of sight, out of mind happens. While they are on the call, they might want to book the next session. But the moment they end the call, out of sight, out of mind, it happened because of a technical roadblock. And finally, different cultures, different problems. That is something everyone has to make peace with. If you are from North India and you are sitting in Bangalore and interviewing users, you cannot expect them to behave like North Indians, right? Because we are culturally different. Me staying in Bangalore for 8 years or 9 years has made me culturally different. Now I have a combination of North India and South Indian traits, right? That is how it ends up happening. So you have to understand and acknowledge cultural, demographic, market differences, right? You cannot put a blanket rule on everybody. So that is how it works. I think it is very important to keep all these few things in mind, and this will give you good ideas from what could be stopping the users, and it'll also give you good research points. I basically use questions to identify research questions primarily, because I have limited time to do research and I cannot waste my time asking bad questions. That is a big no no, right? um, Great. I think this was on the last point. One size doesn't fit all. You have to keep this, like I said about demographics. Every problem is different. Every person is different. There are patterns, but you have to identify who you want to solve it for and what are the most relevant challenges. Every challenge is not worth solving all the time, right? Every challenge is not worth the business's time and money. It may not be worthy of your team's attention. Effort and time required to solve a challenge is a very, very big factor in picking a problem statement. And when I say problem statement, I also mean the sub problems that you pick under it, right? If I am saying that consistency has a problem of time management, of too many things on the plate, then I might want to see what is under my control as a product and what is not under my control. For example, I can help with time management, but I may not be able to help with the too much on their plate part. So I am not going to solve that problem, right? Then I'm going to assess that if I don't solve the too much on the plate problem, will this user still be relevant for me? Is this user falling in any other user's category? If yes, then I will work on building the time management problem, right? So small things like that, you need to do a quick check with yourself every time you are focusing on something. All this is for scoping, right? You also have to use your mental models. You have to see how people around you are thinking and perceiving things, right? That really helps you to break problems down. That is one of the most important ways to break it down. I think Rashi mentioned that briefly, where she said that I noticed everyone is switching from one place to another. That category of people has already built that mental model. They know that this is what they have to do. So we have to leverage it. We know that they are suddenly not going to get a committed, they're not going to become committed instantly if I give them a product. They are still going to have that strong push to like stay on the product. So you have to figure out how to break the problem down and identify, okay, what can keep them here, right? More than what can make them committed. Because I don't want to change their brain. That's not what we want, right?
Yeah.
Finally, I think you have to create different user scenarios. Like I was saying this earlier as well. Like if I am someone who is very studious till college, I come to my work and now my learning has dipped. You cannot tell me that I was a topper before, so I should be doing well now. Like scenario changed, जिंदगी बदल गई, मैं बदल गई, सब बदल गया. Like so, so you have to keep in mind, when is this happening to the person, right? What is the situation? And if the situation changes, will the person behave differently? Will the business get affected? You have to keep that in mind while framing the problem statement. Because if you don't put so much thought into your problem statement and you go to your team and you give them a problem statement to work on, and it has no relevance, no impact, no like lifelong scenario, it'll get cancelled, right? And
Yeah.
that will show you, that is also what they check during your hiring process. How quick are you on your feet when you're asking questions? How are you replying to a question that is being asked? If they give you a bad problem statement, are you questioning them that, hey, this is a bad problem statement? It is biased. It doesn't tell me what I want to know. And I cannot work with this. It is solution oriented. They are actually checking if you're catching on to those things. Because a lot of times, a lot of my, like a lot of people that I have interviewed, I kind of give them a bad problem statement. And the reason I give them a like I tell them like I want a travel app which allows people to plan together, right? It is a horrible problem statement to say that I want a travel app which allows a group of people to plan together. It doesn't have what, it doesn't have who. It is so open-ended, it is so broad. And suddenly within 2 days, whoever starts submitting assignments, I don't even see their assignments. If they have not broken down their who, what, why, I don't see their assignments. Because you know I gave you a bad problem statement. And that's how you get also the problem statements in your companies. They come to you and they say things like this. I'm not even kidding. Like they'll tell you, Ki, can you make this feature? Like just make this, just make this feature and this will work. Right? But as a product designer, our job is to challenge it. That who is this? Who is it for? Why should I make it? What is this problem? Right? Can you show me numbers? Can you show me data? Can you show me proof where you came up with? Why should I make this feature? Right? This is what ends up happening a lot of times. Like I think a lot of times I have noticed that they say that designers fight a lot. To be honest, good designers always fight. They fight for the right things.
Right things. Yeah.
If you don't advocate for understanding the problem well, you're going to make something and give something, and then they'll be like, why did numbers not increase? Nobody knows why numbers didn't increase. No point of time. Like तुमने बोला travel app for group, अभी group
हमने
book
किया.
कर रही है तो मैं क्या करूं? Right?
That's true. That's true.
So, yeah, so I think it's really important to understand the scenario. It's really important to visualize this context. And when you do that, it becomes really powerful. Like when you can put yourself and empathize with the user, understand their needs, not what they are saying, right? It also happens sometimes founders go and talk to users like that. The user will be like, can you please do this for me? And let's see how it works. I am lucky I don't work with a founder like that. I am very, very lucky, because in general, Felix gets a lot of messages from people. And if I were working with a founder like that, every day a new feature would be being pitched to me. Like, hey, this person said this person who commented that this should happen is speaking just for himself. He's not speaking for my 30,000 mentors who are there on the platform. So we as a product designer have to speak for the 30,000 mentors who are there on my platform, right? So that is the power you hold as a designer. That is the power you hold as a product person. And this happens when you ask good questions, frame good problems, understand good problems, right? That is a very, very key thing. Throughout this entire process, you have to make sure that there are different types of problem statements during your work process, right? You will sometimes need to focus on finding solutions, or you might want to know, okay, how do I approach this entire thing, right? How do I actually make certain, what do you call it? Uh, Sorry, lost my chain of thought completely. Like sometimes you want to know that if I should do competitive analysis or not. And if I'm doing competitive analysis, then why these people, right? These are all problem statements that you deal with day to day. Like you suddenly have a thing in your mind that, okay, maybe this question cannot be answered with a survey. Do I need to do a user interview? Then you will ask, who do I want this answers from? What am I looking for? Okay, if this is what I'm looking for, let me go and do a user interview quickly. I think I really need it, right? That is a problem statement that you face with in a process per se, right? And you should do this often. Like you should try to do a check-in with you often. So I always recommend documenting every process. Like you have to, like the document that I showed you is the one that I share with anyone who asks me how to get started with a problem. So write everything that is written, uh, write everything that comes up in your mind. Basically, where did you start from? Where are you going? What are you doing? Why are you doing it? Why did you do competitive analysis? Why did you do user persona creation immediately after a survey? Why did you do a survey even? Right? All of that should be documented. And this is not your case study. This is your documentation. Every project requires documentation. So if you document well, you can actually do the problem statement checkup. Like, hey, I have already done my research. Am I still grounded to my problem statement? Right? Or have I gone away from it? Am I trying to do something that I want to do instead of what my problem statement is asking me to focus on? Right? You can do that check in with yourself in different parts of the process.
Yeah.
And finally, I think I will close with this. Never share a solution in a problem statement. That is a big no, right? Even if someone comes up with you and says, I want this feature, you ask them for whom? Right? That should be like your important question. For whom? Where did you find this? Why is this happening to them? What proof do you have? If you don't have proof, let me go and collect proof, right? That is how you pitch for research in companies. That is how you pitch for understanding your users in companies. So never propose solutions. If you have a solution in mind, write it down somewhere and change it into what problem it is trying to solve. If you say meal planning app, what is a meal planning app solving for the user? Write that, get that validated. If those problems exist, yes, probably you need a meal planning app. Maybe, like maybe. That is never going to happen, because the moment you go with the probable thoughts that maybe this is happening because of this, these are the problems I want to solve, everything won't be true. Something will change, and the moment it changes, you will come up with 10 new solutions in your mind. It's always going to get better only when you research. Always ask why. I have told that many times. Why this, why that? Why is very, very important. Uh, and finally, I think I said this in the last slide as well. Always reflect and redefine. At any point of time, you feel like your problem statement has gotten large and gone out of scope. Sit down, look at your documentation, and redefine your problem statement. Because broad problem statements cause problems for you as a designer. If you tell that I want to solve food delivery for somebody, that's a very broad one. What do you want to solve in food delivery? Like, what is the problem they are facing? Why is this happening? You have to pick a niche of a problem, right? And finally, like, avoid using jargons. I think it's okay if you can just think of like problem solving, that I started here, I want to do this, but I have these roadblocks. How do I get here? What are the questions I need to ask? Who do I need to ask them? That is enough. Common sense is enough. If you can approach it with common sense, jargon, you will realize you learn automatically. In my entire tenure of learning product design, I think the first time I started using jargons was around 2019 or 2020, when we went online because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
When I noticed a high usage of jargons. Like, did you do your information architecture? Did you do this kind of competitive analysis? La 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 la. Uh, Everyone was already doing that. They
Yeah.
just call it that. Like, they were all doing it by saying, okay, what are my competitors doing? They just asked that question and they did competitive analysis. They asked, okay, this person said this, I don't think this is factual enough, let's go talk to some more people. They ended up doing user interviews. They collected too much data from user interviews and they are like, oh, this is a lot of data, let's organize it. That's what is analysis. Let's organize it based on how they feel. That's empathy mapping. Okay, different people said different journeys, let me organize it. That's identifying different user journeys, right? If you have spoken to 50 different types of users, you have to create user groups or personas, that we call it. And people didn't even call it personas. People just said, okay, this category of user, busy individual, is facing this problem, category of user is facing this problem, right? They were not creating personas per se, they were just organizing their data, right? So I think if you keep it as a problem solving common sense approach, it will be super easy, right? Great. I will
Take a
take
break.
okay, now for Q&A. I saw some interesting questions here already. Let me
Uh, I think there was one from Akshar where he was asking, when provided with a poor problem statement, whom do I ask for further information on it? Or
okay,
do I go on with assumptions to break the problem down?
okay,
Do we
okay.
have Akshar here?
Great question. Give me a minute, Shruti. I want to get
Yeah,
a
yeah.
glass of water.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I hope everybody else in the audience is also hydrated and awake. I understand it's afternoon. Please grab your coffees and keep your questions ready. We have, like, you have the option to ask the questions that you have. Meanwhile, can we have Akshar on the chat if you're here? Could you quickly raise your hand so we could allow you to ask your question yourself?
I think I will get Akshar already raised his hand. I can see it.
Yeah, he's here.
I can already
Akshar, you
start
can.
answering the question actually.
Okay,
So
yeah.
I think I understand the question well. Akshar, this is a very common problem that ends up happening. in your company, you generally, your team structure depends company to company. So that is a factor. If you have a product manager, ideally, a poor problem statement should be fixed by them. Ideally, because they also have to align with what you think the problem statement is, right? So ideally in your hierarchy, it's the PM, senior designer. If it's a startup, it could also be your founder, right? It is a lot of different people like that. But when you're doing your concept project individually solo, you are the person who has to find the information. Initially, when you are working on your problems, building the problem statement, I had shown you the document in the beginning. I'll show it to you again if you want. I'll just open it. That,
Arpita, your camera is very blur. Is it the network?
yeah, it is the network for sure, because the
Okay,
blur
okay.
effect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Something is wrong with my Wi-Fi today, but anywho,
No problem, no problem.
screen is the screen sharing is okay.
Yeah, that's visible. Yeah.
All right. So, Akshay, just to answer your question, in hierarchy, that is, there are people always generally who can give you clarity, else you have to go get clarity. During the assumptions process, this is what I suggest. I suggest identifying what are the problems, why could they be happening, what are the types of people facing this problem, which types of people face what kind of problem. These are my assumptions. All these assumptions I convert into research questions. And then I go and I start researching on them. Some become survey questions, some become interview questions, some become can be answered through reviews, articles, competitive analysis, and things like that. But most of the time, I convert them into questions and then I pick and choose which questions I want to answer how. So if you are at a stage where you are starting from assumptions, then you have to first identify your assumption, then convert it into questions. Then you will have to analyze all the data that you get from these questions. And then you have to define your final problem statement that you want to work on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that is what I do on a day to day in my job, actually. That is my primary role, discovery of a problem statement. I actually do end to end, but discovery is the first part of my job. So it keeps happening weekly basis. So I will go, like, someone in the team might have a assumption that our mentors want to get paid. So I was not sure if my mentors want to get paid, because I am in the persona who probably doesn't want to get paid. So now I have to write all my assumptions. Why do they want to get paid? Why don't they want to get paid? Who wants to pay them? Like, things like that. Do we want to pay them as a company? Do users have to pay them? Who is this person who is going to pay them? Stuff like that. And I make a lot of questions and then I decide, do I need to do user interviews or not? Most of the time, for such open ended high level things, interviews are required. It's almost a must, because there is no feature that collects this data for me on the platform. So I have to go to the users and I have to understand it from them. A survey will not do, because this is a very big thing, money. So I have to sit down and talk to them, because if they write in their survey, yes, I want to get paid. Why you want to get paid? Because I just want to do a side hustle. That's not a good enough answer. It will not help me categorize my users well. So if someone says that I want to get paid because I have less time, and whatever time I give, I want complete commitment, that is why I want to get paid. That's a very rich answer. So then I will do all of that. And then I'll come and I will tell them, yes, there are a type of users who want to get paid, but on this condition. So this is the problem statement, right? I give them the problem statement post research. And after that discovery phase is over, the problem solving phase starts, right? That's what ends up happening. Let me know if that clarifies.
It totally does. Thank you so much.
No worries. Great.
Great.
Um,
Next up, we have a question in the Q&A from Sam.
I
How
saw
to
one
pitch?
from Mithilesh. What if the
Okay,
founders are not ready to listen to your thoughts? I
Mithilesh, can we have you? Would you raise your hand and we'll allow you to open your mic? Yeah,
I'll start answering the question and then Mithilesh
yeah,
can
yeah.
tell me if he understands or not and follow up. So, if your founders are not ready to listen to your thoughts, I don't know if I read it somewhere, but someone said leave the company.
Yeah, someone did.
Someone did change the company, right? Right. That's a
Yeah.
very sound advice. But I would want to put a scenario over here. Have you done the due diligence that is required for your founder to trust your thoughts? That is the question which you need to ask. If you have done your due diligence, if it is not from your assumptions, it is actual, factual, validated data, actual, factual, validated data. Yes. If it is all of these above, if it is a strong hypothesis, well written, like I give a Notion doc to explain a problem statement. I can actually give you all a quick glance. Why not, right? Uh,
That would be great.
boss doesn't see this. If I just tell him that, I think you should do this, घंटा कुछ होगा. Like they are not going to, they are actually not going to do anything. They are going to be like proof चाहिए, proof, evidence. So the evidence is very important to pitch your case. If you are already providing evidence and they are not taking care of you after that as well, then it's a problem, right? Then you change your company because then it is bad. Then it's bad for your growth. If they are not able to see what you are able to share so with so much due diligence, it is really bad for your growth because they will overpower you and they will trump you in every decision. And then next time when you apply for a job, people will think that you are not good at convincing, right? That should not be the case. Yeah, great. Awesome. I hope that answers your question, Mithilesh.
Yeah, sure. But I think, yeah, sure. But I think it's always related to documenting things. But in the startups, the founders or the CTO or everyone do not give you such kind of plenty amount of time to document and present anything. What I have done,
Right.
and I discussed or we discussed first in our design team, then discussed with our founders. But still, if they are not convincing, then I think the thing you said, leave
Uh,
that company. So
got it. I
uh,
get your question. So first things first, I think I have to put this in a different way. I understand you're in a startup. I am in a startup too. We are an 11 people team, and it is not too big. And I have been doing documentation for 3 years now, not for my team, but for my sanity. I will go crazy if I have to keep reminding somebody. मैंने उस दिन वो बोला था, I told you this that day and I have to do this. You said this yes then and now I'm doing this. That is really time consuming. It's a waste of my time and effort. So what I try to do is I try to find a process where I can document all these documents then come up with one meeting. All these documents are a combination of different meetings. I have to have a process to start documenting. In my opinion, it's a non-negotiable. Like it is an absolute non-negotiable no matter the size of your company. Lack of documentation causes issues for anyone who gets hired in the future. Has issues for accountability. It has issues where people can actually come and tell you I'm not convinced because they don't remember. Why will they get convinced all of a sudden? Words words are not enough. In my opinion, words are never enough. You need to see it, you need to document it, and you need to. I love getting a approved if possible. I want to know how many people agree with it and disagree with it also. That is what is required. Like moving fast doesn't mean that you deliberately break things,
Yes. True.
right? So in order to save the back and forth later, if I have to take half an hour more and document after a call, I will do it. That is what I have to do as a duty to my job, as a duty to my users. Otherwise, tomorrow, my engineering lead can come and say, what is the proof? Why should we do this? I don't think this is important. What am I going to do then? I'm going to waste time convincing him. That is going to make my users more and more unhappy, right? So small things like that, you have to figure out if your company is capable enough to understand that, right? If they
Yes.
are saying we can't do documentation, that means they want to push you around. And unfortunately, that's not the best way to go about moving fast. Like I deliver every week, at least 2 to 3 things every week. I run manual experiments. I deliver every week since last 3 years. I have been delivering every week. And that is documentation for you. Like that is what is required, because it allows me to remind my team we were aligned then, hence this happened. We are or I took a decision and got all of you aligned, and this is not happening without anyone's understanding. I share on Slack channel almost every update that I work on, the progress of it, why I want to change it. Like I build very much in public in front of my team. They can never question my rationale behind any action. Never it has happened. And that makes my work so much easier. Otherwise, I have to sit on calls and keep explaining to people. That's very boring.
Yeah, I understand. Totally
Right?
understand. Yes.
Awesome. Great. Uh, cool.
Mm,
So I think you were saying that there are some questions, Shruti?
yeah. So before that, I think we have Shambhavi. She wants to ask something. Um,
Yes, go for it, Shambhavi.
Shambhavi, could you unmute yourself? Yeah. Uh,
Actually, while
Sham.
everyone is asking, while everyone is asking questions and we're doing Q&A, can I
Yeah.
just leave this for you folks on the for you to add on the chat or
Yeah, for
somewhere that
sure.
they can submit it, so that I can just look at how you're framing your problem statement. So I have given an example above. Try to use that as a reference. Think of anything that comes to your mind and see how you're able to frame a problem statement. It could be a project that you worked on before or a project that you're working on today, anything, right? Just wanted to put it out there while we are doing Q&A so that you guys get some time to think as well. All right.
Uh, Maybe we'll just upload a Google form and people can submit it there, and we can then share the responses with you as well. Yeah,
Work,
great.
that's perfect. Awesome. So I can stop sharing my screen, right? Like
Yeah,
that'll be good.
yeah.
So that I can focus on seeing everyone. Thank you all for joining, though. That was very sweet of you. That was my last slide. I'm gonna stop sharing, so I wanted to show it all to you. Yes. So
Yeah.
yes, Shambhavi is not unmuting herself.
Shambhavi, you wanted to ask something. Could you unmute yourself and go ahead? Uh, I think she's not here. While she comes
I
back,
saw,
we'll take up the. Sorry?
yeah, I saw one more question. Can I take that instead?
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
I saw this question by Sam. How to pitch research to
Yeah.
companies as a fresher? Why would they listen to us when we have not even done this before? Uh, First things first, uh, research you should have done if you ever got hired as a fresher. Uh, I don't know how it can happen without ever doing it before. But ideally, you should have done it at least 2 to 3 times for 2 to 3 case studies that you have written, right? So the trick over here is how good was your process? How good was your approach to research? If your approach to research is really, really good, in my first job, I was pitching research. Like I think my approach was pretty good in that time for the kind of questions I was asking. I was not saying let's go do research. I was saying who are these people that we are trying to solve. The moment my team is confused and they are not able to answer, they'll be like, okay, we'll figure out a way to get this data for you. Then they will try and they'll go and try to get this data for me. If they can't get this data for me, then I'll ask them, now what are we going to do? Are you telling that this is an assumption that I have to work with because you have no data to support? If they say yes, I will take it in writing that they said yes to this. Now, if anything happens to that feature, I'll come back and I'll be like, see, your biggest assumption is this. I told you these were the risks if we go with this assumption. You should have let me do research. Right? So I kind of uh, I try to work with companies who don't have hierarchy where they go like, why would we even listen to you? Then why did they hire you if they don't want to listen to you? Right? So you have to just make sure you do your due diligence, you ask good questions, and after that, if they are not able to understand your perspective, either you are not asking the right questions or either they are not the right match. That is my take on it, because I have spent time while interviewing with companies to understand if they will give me the liberty to ask these hard questions. That is this your assumption? Is this something that you want to push as a person? Right? And I think if a person can give you data to convince their point, great. If they can't give you data, then I write it down. No data was provided by my product manager. My product manager said this is a low risk assumption. Moving with this low risk assumption, these are my solutions. Right? So
Yeah.
I try to use documentation in my favor to build my case all the time. They can get away with it once, they can get away with it twice, but the third time they have to listen to me. this is
That's true.
this is
That's true.
this is how I go about it. I hope that answers your question, Sam, and the other people who plus two'd it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Great. I'm just checking the chat.
Yeah. We have another question from Ranjit in the Q&A. Whenever I take any dummy problem statement and start researching, I always end up with emotion drift and me be like, dude, let's make awareness kind of thing. Then I rethink and look back, I am far away from what I have chosen at first.
Right.
Ranjit, can we have you here? Could you
Great.
raise your hand? Yeah.
Great question, Shruti. I think we can start with that. One thing
Yeah.
about, uh, I think I mentioned earlier, Ranjit, is also show me your face, Ranjit.
Yeah, please, could you turn on your camera?
Can we see your face? But yeah, while I'm answering the question, you can turn on your camera, hopefully.
Yeah.
And yay, I think it's
Yes,
on.
yes.
So whenever I work, so I have not worked on a concept case study in a long time, but actually a very long time. But I have had the privilege of meeting people around me who need my support in doing this. So what I end up telling them, and I was telling this to Rashi a while ago as well, is defining the problem is very important in the beginning. That is what I was trying to tell in the whole session also. So you first define your problem. But while you're doing the whole process, if you keep documenting and having a rationale for all your action, you can actually go and see what place did you actually slip? Where did the scope become so wide? And then cut it down. If you think that the scope has become larger than what you were thinking, if it has become more emotional, then you have to go back into your document and you have to become objective. This is not to create virality. This is not to create, awareness. Education is not always under your control. See how you can actually make an impact, right? If it requires education, then maybe you are not looking at the problem correctly. Because education is like doing a educational thing is a very high risk thing. Users need an action. They don't need education. Products need education in order to use it. But if I have to start teaching people that, hey, if you learn, if you document, you will get here. And if I have to keep educating them on that, but they're not doing it, then it's kind of a waste of my time, right? So just to make sure that it's not a waste of my time, I have to find a way for them to get into that documentation action. Like, how do I push them to make that first uh, note, or how do I make them write the first MOM? GitHub does it in, if anyone knows what GitHub is, it's a developers platform where they have a visibility of their contributions. It has become so big that recruiters look at that contribution in order to hire you. If you have done enough number of uh, contributions, that means you have been consistent in making commits every day, right? So those kind of things push awareness automatically. You are going to go do that action because you're aware that it is so important for your recruiters, right? So I think documentation, what I would suggest, is the way to keep yourself grounded to the problem. Write, don't think. Use your brain for processing information rather than storing information. Let the storage be done by a document, so that anytime you feel confused, ki, Arey, how did I reach here? You go back and you see, okay, this is how I reached here. Okay, if I change one or two things, maybe I will get to a better place, right? Process is very dynamic in product design, so it is very, very good to document. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Great. Try it and let me know if it works for you. And yeah, let's see how it goes from there. What is a case study as per you? As you mentioned, IA and user journey is basically documentation. Great question, Pujita. I think this is a fun question to answer also, given that uh, it is a fundamental problem. Pujita can raise the hand if possible.
Yeah,
You can highlight them. So, what
yeah,
I understand is documentation is my journey of solving a problem. Today, I met Shruti. She told me that please come and do a workshop with me. Since day one, Shruti has provided me documents after documents to keep me aligned on what exactly we are going to be doing, how we are going to be doing it, what clarity I need, what kind of people are there, because these are questions I will have. These are things I want to do, right? And finally, today she has a presentation attached. She has things that she can see more tangible, but it started from a initial thing that, okay, let's do a workshop. This is the problem we are trying to solve. We are trying to do a workshop. Workshop has all, it is happening now. This is the solution,
yeah,
but the entire documentation that went behind it is our process. We kind of collaborated. We came up with multiple ways of documenting different stages of our journey and conversation. Sometimes we did video calls, sometimes multiple things have been done. All of that is documented by me personally as well. Now, tomorrow, if I have to write an article on how successful this workshop was, that is equivalent to a case study. So, your documentation is the source of truth of your project. Your case study is a story of how you solved it. It's the story of this source of truth. So if you have done user journey or created a user persona because of an analysis method, by the way, user journey and user persona are not documentation, it is documented, but it is a user research analysis method. I'm analyzing data using user personas. So that particular step, if you have done it in your source of truth, in your project, in your problem solving, then you can talk about it in your case study, saying, see, I did this because of this, and it helped me like this. Information architecture is mandatory because information architecture is something which shows a recruiter if you can hand off a good architecture to a developer. If you are going to create a high level architecture, sign up, get here, get there, a developer can't do much with it. A developer needs a very verbose, detailed information architecture. Which page, which button, how many states of a single button, hover state stuck you have to specify in that information architecture. How is the information flowing? Why is the information changing? On what action does what input be taken? All of that you have to give for the developer. That is generally shown in early case studies, like your initial case studies, because you want to pitch to your recruiter that I understand how to hand off a design. That is why we show it. I will not show it in the case studies that I will write for ADPList and information architecture, because I will focus more on the strategy. That is more important for me after these many years of experience. Handing off is not my priority because I have already worked enough in the industry to know how to hand off things. That is why when you notice case studies of a little senior folks, they don't have information architecture, they don't have user persona, they write very focused on strategy because they know how to analyze data, they know which method to use when. Everyone doesn't create personas every time, we don't create personas every time, we don't map user journeys, right? These are done at specific times in our life, in our career. So we have to decide if we want to write it or not, what is more important for us. And mostly these things are not important for us. It's the story which is very important. As a fresher, it is very important because somebody needs to know that you know these techniques, that you know how to hand off good information architecture, that you know how to create good UI, you know how to analyze data. That is why you have to add all of these things. But I always recommend all my mentees to first do documentation. If you have done documentation over, let's say you're working on a project for 3-4 weeks, right? And you have written 0 words in those 3-4 weeks or documented 0 things in those 3-4 weeks, after you have solved your project, you are going to write your case study and you're going to sit and think, what did I do that day? Why do I talk to this kind of user? And those things shouldn't be happening. Then your case study becomes very surface level and very meaningless. But if you have documented, you can be like, I came across this problem while reading a review and it sparked this question. And that's what led me to doing user interviews of this kind of users. That is so much more impactful in a case study. When a recruiter reads that, they are like, wow, what is this? This is an entire problem solving method this person has chosen. Very good. But if you say that I did 5 user interviews with 6 people because I thought this is my target audience, not going to get you any brownie points, right? But if you can explain how you reach to these kind of audiences for this question, the way you ask and narrate, your storytelling is going to improve. The documentation will make sure that your case study, which is the story of how you solved, is written well. Your case study is just that, right? So when you're writing your case study, you can write your case study in one day if you have done 4 weeks of good documentation. It takes one day. Like I have done documentation. I have been working with ADPList for 3 years, guys. 3 years. You think I will be able to remember my first case, like the first story of the first project I did? I have to go and see. I have to see, did it succeed? Did it fail? Maybe it failed also. And I might want to write about it, right? It's a story. It's a story of my work. So I hope that answers your question, Pujita.
Oh,
Pujita,
yeah,
you
it
can
does,
unmute.
Arpita. Thanks a lot for that. Hope I got it right. I'm just framing it in one word. It means that it's basically documentation is a backbone of the story. So yeah, it's going to got it. Also,
That is
thanks
correct.
for putting this up. Like for I believe like many times I've seen that. I, firstly, I'm also fairly new to UX, so problem statement is something that whenever it comes to me, I'm just like, okay, how to solve it. That's what I do usually. So
Yeah.
thanks for like highlighting those points that we need to think before the problem statement and then reach on to the problem statement. So that's great. Thanks a lot.
For sure. No worries, Pujita. If you want, you can always find me on all these social media platforms, or you can find me on ADPList. Actually, it's very easy. I'm always testing, so I'm somehow always there. You can
Sure.
actually ping me your problem statement and be like, hey, this is what I came up with. What do you think? Right?
Got it.
When you get started with a project, a concept case study or something like that, you can
Sure.
always just ping me. And if you want, you can just create a Word document and always share it with me, and I can leave comments on those Word documents for you. We don't need to get on a call. Like, you can totally
Yeah,
exploit
sure.
my
That'll
time.
be great. Surely, surely. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Awesome. Great. uh how I think there is a question. Is there any question that is not answered? I answered Sam's question, how to pitch research to companies as a
Yeah,
fresher.
yeah. We took up Ranjit. There is Pratik who's asking, how do we do all stuff if we have limited time? Working in an agency, time is always tight. For a pitch, we typically get just 3 days, barely enough to catch. And if you're lucky enough to win, we get maybe 20 days to actually deliver the full wireframes. So with such short timelines, how to manage stuff?
Great question. I have to give you one bad news while I
Yeah.
answer this question. The bad news is agencies are a little tricky because
Yeah,
you are
that's
doing
true.
client servicing,
Yeah.
and your client is, what do they say? Client is God or something like that. When I was in marketing, that was the idea that was put in my mind. I was a graphic designer for a long time in my career as well. And those few years, first I was thinking that agency is a problem, which I'm right, agency is a problem for me. Then I went to client side. Then I realized marketing is a problem. Like, I'm really good at my job, but I'm not getting satisfaction in it. And I'm getting very easily frustrated with all these people. So something must be like wrong with the marketing field. So that's when I
Yeah.
found product, and product was the right fit for me. And because there's so much logic. So now agencies is where it gets a little tricky. It doesn't get tight, it is tricky. Lollipop Design is one of the good agencies that I know. They spend
Yeah.
a lot of time if they want to do research. That's
Yeah.
because the entire company is aligned on that kind of process. So if you find an agency which is just trying to get shit done, it's very harmful because you have to do client servicing. You can't stop servicing your client. Your client is going to take away your retainer. There's so many things dependent. It is so scary. It is a scary, scary place to work in
Yeah.
an agency, I would say. Which actually, if you don't find the right agency, can deteriorate your UX skills. People who are generally working with agencies have a very tough time moving into the product companies. Very tough time. It is not because they are not good at their job. They're very good at their job. But that's what makes people think that within 3 days they were able to give this? Did they even have any data? And nowadays, if you notice, most of the uh, companies that are there uh, today, product first companies, they are very data driven. They want to see
Yeah.
what kind of questions you ask, they want to see how you challenge. Unfortunately, agency doesn't give you that space
Mhm.
because of the tight,
Tight
always tight,
deadlines. Yeah.
always tight, always tight, right? I have seen people struggle a lot. I have seen people struggle a lot in agencies. I personally feel like a good agency is what you need. Every agency cannot do that for you because they have to keep in mind that they want to set you up for success. But if there is an agency who is just thinking about the client's success, then maybe you will not succeed, right? Because the agency has to be like, no, I want my client to succeed, and I want my employees also to succeed. And I have to make sure that the client recognizes that only if my employees succeed, they succeed,
Yeah.
right? So that is a whole process, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that answers your question, Prateek. It is a little difficult, but I have a quick tip for you. Quick tip for what you can do next time. At least try to understand what is a high risk assumption and what's a low risk assumption, right? Try to sit in on meetings during the when the client's project is being handed off. Try to sit in on the just 1 second. My mom is giving me a lot of missed calls. I'm sorry, there's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
going on in
Sure.
my
Go ahead. Kid.
yeah, sorry. She just gave me like 8 missed calls, and you guys know what happens when mothers give 8 missed calls. It's not, it's very
You
scary.
should probably go and take it if that's urgent.
No, no, no. I just dropped her a message. It's probably not urgent, and she saw something and she wants to probably talk about it. Uh,
Okay.
so I think what I was saying, Pratik, a quick tip: identify high risk, low risk uh, problems in your problem statement, or let's say in the way that it was delivered. Try to tell your client handlers, account managers, or whoever they are, try to tell them that, hey, I need these information if possible for every project. Like, who is it happening to? Why is it happening? What are we trying to solve? If the client can share this in the brief, it will be really, really helpful. Uh, can I have one call with the client to understand a little about their timelines and how things work? Just try to see if you're able to nudge a small few things in the process. See if you're able to pitch to your client that, hey, I like pitch to your team that, hey, I think if we do this for the client, it could be very risky. Shall we try suggesting them this research plan? How it You can do research in 2 days if you want. It is very possible, because you need to know which are the right questions to ask, right? Like, what are the questions that you need answered? If you know that these are the 4 or 5 questions you need answered from your research, do a survey if required, do interview if required, whichever way answers the question, and pitch it to the client that I can get this done. I just need 2 more days. You have to give defined timelines to clients sometimes, otherwise they'll not trust the process. Or you tell your team that, can we add 1 or 2 days for like basic ground research whenever we are pitching a timeline to a client, like just for like quick research, right? Because like I told you folks, I hand off things weekly, which means I have to be on my toes when it comes to researching as well, right? I cannot, obviously, if I have 2 months to research on something, I'll research better. But if I have 2 days, I still have to be smart about it. And I have to find the questions which are the most risky ones. That is what is the. So if you identify low risk, high risk, immediately you will understand how deep waters you are in. I hope that helps you. That might help you in your job.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Great. Um, could you
Mm,
specify when to use surveys and when to do interviews with an example? This is an entire, like, this is what research is about. So I think that requires a different session. Like, but I can give a small breakdown, I guess. Great. Let me just share my screen. So we talked about assumptions earlier, right? We said that we can identify our assumptions. That will be great. From my assumptions, I basically come up with some questions which get translated to research questions. All right. So now from this, what I kind of try to do is I try to find objective questions and subjective questions. Objective questions are basically questions which have limited answers. Yes and no. Um, Rarely, sometimes, often, alone, with parents. Though, like, limited answers, anything with limited answers. Like, if I can put all the answers in one page, that I should know that these are the only answers I can get from it. One word answer mostly. Those are what are objective questions. They mostly go into surveys. Subjective questions have many variations. This I call long answers.
Yeah.
When we are in school, we were writing exams, right? We have one mark answers, and we have 20 mark answer, or 5 mark answers and 20
Yeah.
mark answers. So 5 mark answers are solved mostly by surveys, desk research, statistics, data, all of that. All one word answers mostly can be found from a secondary research point of view, something that doesn't require direct conversation with the user. That is what secondary research would. User survey, even though it is a form of interaction with the user, it is still one level secondary, because it's not a direct, you don't understand the data you have gotten. You just get objective answers. Yes, no, sometimes, rarely, often. So anything that can be answered with limited answers, 1 mark, 5 mark, bol sakte hain usko. That is what I put in surveys, if it matches also that too. It may not be there in a survey. It can be answered from a review, maybe. It can be answered from desk research of different articles. Maybe my company has a dashboard, all of that. The user interview is when I have behavioral long answer 20-mark questions, which if I don't get answered will add risk. That's when I have to go and do interviews. I mentioned earlier about payments. When we wanted to say that mentors want to get paid, I cannot have a check mark on the survey saying that mentors want to get paid, so let me pay them. I basically have to go and talk to them and understand their intention behind getting paid. So that is where that comes from. Uh, it totally depends. Sometimes you may not even need user interviews. So yeah.
Sometimes
Soumya,
there are also very detailed surveys. So is that also one form how we can kind of avoid getting into interviews, as it's costly? So
just to give a costly from which aspect? Where do you work?
I don't work, but I've heard companies say this, that they can't afford it, and so they don't exactly have a research team and all of that.
They may not be able to afford a research team, but you as a product designer should be able to do research, right?
Yeah.
So that would mean, like I said, if you want to put a question, for example, I'll give you an example. If you put a long answer, like the 20-mark one that I said, right? A subjective answer. If you put a long answer in a survey, a user 90%, 90, actually 190, 99% of the time will not give you a good answer. If you ask somebody, please explain when was the last time you had a bad mentorship session, they will reply to me by saying, I had it 2 months ago and the user did this. That's it. But
You won't
if
know
I
the story.
right, they'll not give me a story. But if I send out a user survey before the interview, I ask the user, how would you say your overall experience has been good or bad? Like I give them that range, and they say overall experience has been bad. Then I go and talk to them. I notice that you have done about 50 sessions because I have that data, and you have had overall a bad experience. Can you talk about the last time you felt this way? This person is going to start ranting almost immediately.
Yeah.
And that data is invaluable, right? That data is actually invaluable. If my mentor is leaving the platform, right? If I send them a survey, if I want to understand why did they churn, I send them a survey, they will not even fill it.
Hmm.
But if I tell them, do you want to meet me for 20 minutes? I want to understand what we could have done better. They'll start complaining left, right, and center. Right? So I would love for it to be a way that you have the data that you don't have to do user interviews. Sometimes that is the scenario. In ADPList, we reach that a lot of times in different problem statements where we already have interview data. We know what users want about a certain thing. It is not that risky. If we don't do interview for that question, it may not be that risky. But sometimes it is a make or break. If we don't go and get those answers, it might actually damage us, right? Might be very risky. So those are the situations I would say that you do interviews. Companies may not have the funds to ever hire a research team if they're a startup. That is one thing that you have to keep in mind. That is why a product designer is a holistic role, from discovery to research to strategy, architecture to execution. We do it all,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
So if you work with a company which is low on resources, you might have to find quick methods of getting the information that you need, which is factual, validated, less risky. It is okay to take risks also, but you just need a rationale that I'm taking this risk because of these reasons,
All right.
right? I'm going with this assumption because of these reasons, and I think it is okay. The data like this suggests that this risk is not going to affect us that much. Small things like that make a difference. But if you have to do an interview, do it. Like, that is what I would suggest. Like, it takes actually, uh, honestly, 10 minutes to set up a survey for screening users. It takes about 20 emails to and find them and send it to them. Like 20 people you want to talk to, tell them this is a survey, fill the survey, show up for the call. Out of those 20, even 4 or 5 show up, you have at least something to work with,
Yeah.
right? But you have to
Right.
pick these types of users very well. Like, for example, I was saying earlier, right? I want to talk to proactive learners sometimes because I want to solve for them. So I will go and talk to only people who have done more than 5 sessions in that month. I'm not going to talk to anybody who has done less than 5 sessions,
Mhm.
right? So those are the kind of things that you can try. Like, you set a criteria. When you join a company, you will get access to all this user data, and you can handpick someone who has done a number of sessions, has been there for a number of months. I want to talk to that person. You will get at least 30 people like this. You will actually get at least 100 people if you have a larger user base. At least 100 people you will get. And then from that 100, at least 20 will show up. And 20 calls can be done in a week's time. Sometimes you have to push a little bit, but can be done. From 20, you can reduce a few also. But as long as you get these people, right?
Yeah. Actually, earlier sorry.
I said, don't ever get stressed by it. It is very doable. Like, research can be done in 2 days, it can also be done in 20 days, and it also can be done in 22 months. Don't get worried about it. If you have less time, you just need a different approach. You just need to focus on the right questions. That's all.
Actually, earlier you might have covered it, but I lost some connection. When I mentioned that, how do I approach asking for research in a company?
Oh yeah,
I
I did
meant,
ask that question. Yeah.
yeah. When I said that I have not done it before, I meant I've not done it before in companies. So is that
Don't
something?
worry. Don't worry about it at all. Like I mentioned it that time. The key thing is what kind of questions you're asking in your interview. How have you written your case study? How have you approached research? Because a recruiter can see it. A recruiter can see if you have a knack for understanding how to get data.
Okay.
That is what you have to show. You have to show that you are not wasting time on research while you're doing your concept case studies. Like wasting time in the sense that you took 4 months to solve a problem. Out of the 4 months, you took 3 months to research because that's what you thought was important. Then a company will be like, no, this person is not a right fit because you took more time. But let's say you took 2 weeks to do research or 1 week to do research and find some answers and give good insights. They'll be like, with so less time, she asked such great questions and hence reached such a good solution. That is the picture you want to paint in your case study. Then they will trust you. It is all dependent on the kind of questions. It's very, very, the problem that you want to solve that day for research is very important.
So should I
Right.
mention the timelines as well in the case study?
Yes, you mentioned a high level timeline, right? That you took 2 weeks or 3 weeks to solve it, kind of thing. A person can understand, like any recruiter can understand how much work has gone into research, how it has happened. Like I said, research is a very different conversation. It requires, like, there are some tells in your case study which show how good your question asking skill was. Like the question that you ask yourself in order to get to the research. There are some tells, but that requires a different session. You can always book a one-on-one session with me and then we can talk about it in depth.
Yeah, sure, sure.
Yeah,
Thank you for the answers.
but it is very possible. That is all I want to tell you. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you,
much.
Sam.
Awesome. Great. Any other questions so far?
We have one in the chat. What if you have to make your first project and case study? How do you go about interviews and user surveys then? It's asked by Madhvi.
Yeah, Madhvi, I don't think it's going to be any different, right? I just broke down the objective and the subjective thing, right?
Yeah.
If it is a one-word question, it goes into surveys, desk research, things like that. If it's a long answer, it goes into interviews. Nothing changes with your first project and your 100th project. It'll it's exactly the same. And just make sure that you do your documentation properly. You have a rationale behind why you are doing your action. You have a rationale behind why you are doing surveys, right? Have a good understanding of why you are taking every step. Like I said, it is user survey, interviews, they're all data collection methods. You have to understand why you want to collect that data. Why is that data so important for you? If you know why it is important for you, you will figure out where you have to go to do surveys, where you have to go and do interviews. It will be very obvious for you, right? If you have to do it or not, also you will figure it out. So don't worry about that. I think how to approach research is a um, good next session, probably.
Yeah,
I can figure something out with Shruti and see if we can talk a little
for
bit about
sure.
how to do research. Because when you, I think, go for hackathons, which are like 48 hours and things like that, I have noticed people who ask good questions, right? They somehow find people to talk to if they need interviews and all in the first 24 hours. They do it.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
they just figured out the right questions.
yeah.
And the others who are trying to do the process like the process should be done, they kind of miss out.
Yeah.
They are like time,
People
time, time.
get stuck. Yeah.
Yeah, they are like always like time nahi hai, time nahi hai. But the ones who are like thinking about dynamically moving in a process, they don't care. To 48 hours, they look at it as too much time. Right? So when I
Yeah.
did my first hackathon, I also thought about 48 hours. How can I make the best use of it? Asking the right questions. It
Yeah.
is super, super important. I actually have a YouTube video already. I did a session with a group session with ADPList, I think 2 years ago. There is
Okay.
a video on it. Maybe I can link it for you folks and you
Y-
can watch it a little bit, and we'll
I
do a
think,
session
yeah.
with Sandskriti as well.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, that would be great.
uh, should I share it on the chat, Shruti? Is that okay?
Yeah, 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 for sure, for sure.
All right. So this one is mostly talking about how I approach assumptions and problem solving in general. This is my take on design thinking. It is very high level, it is very philosophical, but I hope it kind of, the philosophy is what you need to understand. If you get the philosophy, implementing it is super easy, super easy. Um, I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Uh, but I think good next session we have in mind for research. Let's try that. Why
Definitely, definitely. I think it will be good for people to really understand how to even think of doing research in competitions, because people usually end up thinking of that as a unnecessary step because they don't have as much time, they think.
Right. They
Yeah.
work only with assumptions, which is
Yeah.
also okay. Like it's okay to
Yeah.
work with assumptions, but have a good reason for choosing your assumptions.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
shouldn't be because time nahi hai,
Uh-huh.
right? That is not a good reason.
Yeah.
However, I think it can be like a series, right? Like framing a problem statement is the first part, that the first 20 to 40 minutes of your hackathon, this is what you actually end up doing.
Yeah.
Figure out how to frame the problem statement well. uh, the next 4 5 hours is what goes on getting the data. I
Hmm.
wouldn't call it research, I would say getting the data,
Yeah.
whatever data you need. And then it goes into solving and execution and strategy and things like that, whatever.
Yeah.
But that is how it generally goes. So it is very crucial to like it, also teams mein jab kaam karte hai na, there is a lot of difference in opinions. So I think we
Yeah.
talk about research a little bit so that they can uh, have a aligned opinion about approaching it.
For
Otherwise,
sure. That's really true.
that's what ends up happening, wastes a lot of time as well. Ki nahi,
Yeah.
I think this is right and you think this is right. Oh, fine. I love
Yeah.
you. Yeah,
That's
awesome.
true. That's true. Working in teams is also a tricky thing to do.
Yeah, documentation.
Yeah.
Anyone says anything, they're like, when did this happen? I'll be like, look at this. Read.
Documentation at the rescue.
Yeah, always has rescued me from such hard conversations. I am so confident in my job only because I have writing. Like that is the best way to deal with imposter syndrome, guys. Best way. Write everything down. Have a reasoning. Who's going to challenge you? Open the document and read it yourself if you're challenging yourself.
Right.
Right? So it really helps. I so love
Mm.
documentation. All of you saw a glimpse of my Notion. That is all maintained and managed by me alone. One
We
person.
had a few requests in the chat for people from people to conduct a workshop on how to document.
Okay, I am not ever so sorry guys, but never a workshop on how to document. I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why. Because documentation only means writing. Like how I wake up in the morning and I journal. No, today I had 4 apples for breakfast. I had 4 apples because there was no muesli. That is what you have to do with your project. Today I got this problem. I, like Rashi explained to me, I saw this happening with my friends. She'll write in her document, I noticed this is happening with my friends, right? I noticed that they are doing this. These are the questions I have. Just call it brain dump. Don't call it documentation. That is what I call it. I call it brain dump. I just put a title, organize it later, no problem. Don't focus on organizing. Just dump all your thoughts. I am doing this because, I want to do this because, I plan to do this next because. Just have that in place. That's a very good start. Cleaning it up, you will do it eventually. You don't need me to teach you. You will do it yourself in your own style, the way you understand it. All right. It's just a brain dump. Whatever's in your brain, dump it on a piece of paper or a Notion doc or anything. Just have it written somewhere. Right?
Yeah.
Great. What would
We have another question from someone regarding psychology. Yeah, you mentioned your interest in psychology, and that was seen in the way that you analyze your user behavior. I'm keen to learn about psychology. Could you suggest some resources?
Thanks. That's validation. Thanks. This is another Shruti who is making my day.
Yeah.
This is good. I actually don't have any. Okay, I have many books. I don't have any articles because it is a very thick subject. Also, like, I have been doing this for years now. I think it's been like I've been taking therapy and applying this for a decade or more now. So given that that is the case, I think it is studying. So I can recommend you books and you can start studying them. But the video that I shared right on YouTube, Shruti, the one who's
Yeah.
asking questions, Shruti, you can try looking at that video in order to unlock your biases first. I think one of the best ways to learn psychology is to understand that you have to unlearn and learn everything. That is what I think helps me on a day to day basis, that I don't know everything. I need to know more. I need to be curious. Has anyone watched Ted Lasso?
No.
You should
Not
watch
really.
Ted Lasso. It is a
Okay.
very nice show. It teaches you how this person is a very curious person,
Okay.
right? And curiosity is very important in life, right? If you are curious, you understand more. If you understand more, you are triggered less,
Makes
right?
sense.
That is how psychology kind of works. So even in our day to day projects, what ends up happening is the solution that comes to my mind is a trigger. It's because I don't understand enough. With whatever I understood, I came up with some solution with my assumptions and everything like that. But the more I start understanding, I can come up with a better solution and avoid all these triggering solutions, right? So I think, Shruti, you can DM me on ADPList or LinkedIn or something like that, and I can ping you some books. Actually, I'll have to look at my library and then find you relevant books. Um, but one of the nicest books I have read recently is Decision Making. I forgot what that exact book's name is, but it's called something 50 decision making frameworks or something like that. Decision making is the first step after learning and unlearning. I'll ping you that book. Let me just look for it on the internet now and see if I can find it. But yeah, I hope that would help you. Decision book. Where is it? Ah, I found it. It's called The Decision Book. Right. Of course. Had to be a simple name. They couldn't make a very, didn't have to be a very important decision. They were like, decision book. This book basically talks about different psychologies that can be used to take decisions on a day to day basis. It is very technical and product written, but I do think it applies in every aspect of your life. You should try that. It's simple read to get started. And depending on the type of psychology you are interested in, I am very interested in the complexity of human nature in general. So for me, in order to might be personal, but in order to work with my family, in order to build a family, in order to do my job well, to manage my stakeholders at companies, to talk to all of you people today, it requires a lot of strength every day. So that is what I wanted to understand, is how can I do better at it, and how can I treat others better. Like that was the main reason why I got into psychology in the first place. And I realized that made me more empathetic, which made me a better designer. Like that was, it was not for design. It just, I realized empathy is very loosely thrown around in the design industry. It is actually one of the toughest skills to build, because it is the rarest to find in people as of today. So I think that's what I did psychology for, right? And that's what makes me a good designer. I think if I'm a good designer, that's what makes me a good designer.
Great. Shruti, does that answer your question? You can unmute yourself.
Yes,
Yeah,
it does.
it does. Yeah, even I'm like in general interested in understanding people.
I send you the books. I think there are some good casual books which are not theoretical. They are more like uh helps you open your mind. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
kind
I
of
will
books
look.
I think you should start with. Like unlearning, like getting an open mind changes everything. Changes
Right. Yeah.
everything. Like to know
True.
that you don't know everything is empowering in a different way. Like I don't, that is a very common problem in today's case studies and portfolios. Everyone thinks that when you start with a project, you're supposed to know the solution.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's what your job description is. Your job description is to solve the problem, not to know the answer,
Right.
right? So I think that's one for sure. Um, but yeah, there are some very heavy psychology easy reads. I'll send it to you. They are not design psychology at all, though.
Okay.
Design psychology is, I mean, if you Google them, there are a few books. I think User Decisions is one of them. Mom Test. Mom Test is a really good book. It teaches you how to ask good questions, but it is a very expensive book. So if you can get a PDF version of it, it will be better.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Hooked is a very commonly
Yeah.
shared
Yeah.
book for design psychology. Um, User Decisions is another one. There is also Confidence in, I am so sorry, I'm forgetting. Confidence in Design. No, Confidence Design. What is the book called? Creative Confidence. There is a book called Creative
Right. Yes.
Confidence as well.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I read
that's
that.
also pretty decent. There is User Decisions. There's a lot of books on there's a lot of books on user psychology for design. Design of everyday things is a very, very common one, but it's a really well written one. It's like a storybook. It's like, it's not even like too jargony. That is what I like about it. Um, I am just looking at my books. Oh, there is this really good brand building book called Fascinate by Sally Hogshead, if I'm not wrong. Uh, Fascinate by Sally Hogshead. That particular one kind of teaches you a little bit about market psychology, which you kind of need while you are doing designing. Like they tell you like how people look at things. It's a brand building book, but it talks very well about user psychology.
Okay.
Yeah. Uh, I think Simarpreet has a PDF of mom test or something, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. That's actually like a good book for everyone for asking questions. Um, I will just try to find what other books I think has caught my attention. Uh, 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 Mom Test is one of my favorites. Uh, oh, The Psychology for Designers, Joe Leach. That's also a good book. There is also another one called, it has a lemon on the cover, Emotional Design.
Yeah.
Emotional Design is also pretty good. These are the few that are coming to my mind in terms of good psychology. Don't Make Me Think, right? Don't Make Me Think.
Yeah.
A good one. Yeah, these are some in my head which are from the design field. Like Lean UX is also there. The first one I said, user something. Yeah, user
User
decision.
decision. Yeah.
Decision. It's a small book. It's very small. Uh, and I also keep going to bookstores and kind of finding user research books once in a while.
Mhm.
Not so popular authors. So I'll try to see if I can go through my library and come up with something. I'll ask Shruti to share it on the WhatsApp.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, awesome, great. Ha, thak gayi.
I've also dropped all the names of the books that we just discussed in the chat, and we'll share it on our community pages as well for you guys to have reference.
Yes, yes. Awesome. That's great. Laws of UX is a good book, Raj. However, Laws of UX is very confining. It starts telling you what you should do or shouldn't do. I don't appreciate that approach initially. I think it's good to know the laws of UX, but it's not okay to impose them too much, right? There should be some dynamic control you have over your projects. It's a good reference book, in my opinion, not a good psychology book.
Great. Okay, I think we take one last question and
Yes,
then
yes,
yeah.
sure, sure. I think
Uh,
great. I'm glad there are so many questions.
yeah. Utsav has a question. What if the client gives a gibberish brief about the project and does not define the scope for it? How do you define the problem statement then?
Got it. Coming from the marketing background, and I'm pretty sure it'll be the same advice I will give for product as well. You have to define how the brief should be written. You have to give the questions. Like when I used to work for clients, and even today when I take freelance projects for myself, I really need a document filled by them. Till the time they don't fill that document, I am not committing to anything. They need to fill it. Like it is almost a must. And I have fought for this everywhere. It is a bare minimum for agencies because clients will throw you around if it is not documented. Like it is really scary how much time they can waste for you if they don't care about, because they think that you press a button and a design comes out. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
Like people just think that oh, like they'll do something on their laptop and suddenly there'll be a UI. So that is the situation. So because of that, you need to write the brief. Like you should ask who are your users? How did you identify your users? What are the type of problems are your users facing? Are you open for more research? If you do not want more research, then please provide data to help me understand stuff like that. You can have it written. Give them a Google form. Tell them to fill the Google form. Then we'll talk. And if
Yeah.
that answers your question.
Utsav, are you there? Great.
Yes. Thank you,
Great.
Arpita, for that.
Yeah. Also, Utsav, if you are not the person who can do this change, suggest it to the person who can make this change happen. Tell that your
Okay.
work is getting very difficult when people don't come up with good briefs. Gibberish briefs means gibberish work. Is that okay?
Yes,
Like,
yes.
ask them that straight up. And you also see the document. If you see that there are some questions which you think you need answered, try to tell them, I need this question answered. The person should be able to explain it to you why that question should not be there, if at all it should not be there. Right?
Okay, understood.
Great. I think
Thank you.
no worries. I see another question from Sam. She's asking, I
Yeah.
have only seen senior roles in research. So how do you suggest entering research roles? Also, what is the freelance scope of research? Freelance, very less scope in India. Senior roles in research. Well, research is not a widespread role in India. That is one of the problems. And wherever it is, they have to first hire seniors in order to hire the rest of the funnel. That is why you are seeing more senior roles. Um, to enter user research specific role, like as a researcher role, it is very, very important to find research first companies.
Mhm.
Right? If you don't find a research first company, it will get a little tricky. Because I think from what I remember, like there are some companies which have like one senior researcher, that's it. Because that much works for them. They don't need more than that, right? But some companies which are very large, they have big research teams, because large companies means large amount of data, means research team is required to analyze. But in that, the research role gets a little diluted. Like you may not get a good part of the research funnel sometimes and things like that. So yeah, I would totally say that the opportunities are a little less, but they are there. So like Google kind of scale of companies always are looking for researchers, always. Because everything cannot be done by a product designer. They need someone to go and collect the data and analyze it correctly so that the product designer can trust them and take it from there. Because product designers don't trust anyone else other than other product people. They don't even trust each other sometimes. So they need a proper report. That report the research team can generally give. So happens in large scale companies very easily. Smaller scale companies, little effort to find them, but they're there.
Any you would like to suggest or that
Uh,
comes to mind?
Nothing in India right now comes to my mind actually. Like Google comes to my mind because I know like 3 UX researchers from Google.
Yeah.
If Google comes to my mind, I don't know anyone else who is working in research actually in my personal circle from India. I have had a lot of colleagues from outside India who are researchers, because outside India, research is very, very, very used. India is still picking up.
I want to know how's the scenario about research at ADPList. I mean, do you guys work specifically with researchers or like you do it
I do,
yourself?
I do everything. I have at least, so I have a calendar already set up. I keep having, like, since the last 3 years, I think I have done interviews almost every 10 days.
No.
Yeah. I have spoken to every mentor on the platform, mostly.
Wow.
And yeah, I also do customer experience. That means I go to intercom and I try to like reply to people. I have my profile there. So that allows me to see that part of the funnel. Where are they complaining? I
Yeah.
also keep doing interviews with different cohorts of users. I also do specific cohort interviews based on a problem that we are trying to hypothesize on or make an assumption of. Yeah, I'm always researching. I'm always researching. Like I said, mentorship and design are my two biggest passions. Okay. So if I go to somebody, I want to know how they are learning. If I'm talking to them, I am naturally very curious about people in general. So I will find out first everything about what they do, how they are. where they live, when did they move here, what is happening. Okay, now why did you get into mentorship, or why are you mentoring, or why aren't you getting there? What are your learning habits like? I'm always like talking about it to people. Also very
Right.
interesting, right? Like if I can learn from someone else's learning habits, nothing like
Learning from someone else's mistakes, I've heard, but this is new.
mistakes are learning habits only, I think.
Yeah.
I I I have made enough mistakes to learn. Like that is, I think, how I look at it. I love listening to other people's perspectives and getting an idea of how they got there and what could have been different. What would I have done? Like I empathize with them, but I'm still a different person. I would have done it very differently sometimes.
Yeah, for
Like I
sure.
understand how they do it, but I don't understand how I would ever get there. Oh, Swiggy has researchers too. Right, right. Swiggy also comes to my mind. I forgot. So the three friends I'm talking about, they were all ex-Swiggy, by the way. I don't know why I didn't remember that. Yeah, Swiggy also has, Zomato also has researchers. Yeah, all these unicorn companies, you can
Mhm.
look at it. They have researchers. Big team, lot of data.
Yeah.
Udan also has researcher. Yeah, काफी.
But for you, you mentioned the international ones as well. So if someone is trying to make an entry there, even for that, do you have any particular companies that comes to mind for that?
International, no, nothing comes to my mind per se. I mean, to make an entry, in terms of entry level, from what I can understand, a research team is always required when there is a lot of data. So startups and all, though, mostly don't have a research team. But if big data is there, then you have to first see if it is a remote job or not.
Yeah.
If it is remote, then you have to see if you have to move to another country or not, because data is generally kept private inside certain countries sometimes. Like, for example, whatever collection for Google happens on user research has to be a certain demographic, right? Like India के लोग India से बात करेंगे ना. Indians generally will not speak to another target audience until unless the manpower is less over there and things like that. But rarely another demographic will enter another demographic. So when you apply to another country also, they have to believe that your research skills are good enough to avoid demographical and cultural differences. Because that is also part of research. If you can't understand the cultural difference, you can't analyze the data correctly.
That's true. I think
Yeah.
I should start from here.
Yeah, I think, for cultural, this is the favorite book of my life. It's called Culture Map by Erin Mayer. This will teach you about cultural differences and also about psychology when it comes to different cultures. Because I work for a global company, uh, global team, and global audience. This book helped me think very differently. Culture Map. Map. MAP.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give
I
it a
don't
go.
know if you can, yeah. It's by Erin Mayer. It's really good. It's really nice book. But yeah, hope that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you for answering the question.
No worries.
Great. Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay.
Okay, I see one more question. I think I can take that quickly.
Yeah, for sure.
Sakhi, who's my Sakhi today?
Saki,
She has
could you
asked,
quickly raise your hand?
while building a self-initiated case study, where does one find the right research participants to validate assumptions? Through surveys, through screening survey is very important. Even if you're reaching out to your family and friends, you should tell them, fill a survey. You shouldn't assume that just because they are family or friends, you know them very well, or you know their behaviors very well. you have to accept that you don't know anything. So you send them a survey, let them fill the survey, and when they fill the survey, you decide after that if you want to interview them or not. Because that is what a screening survey does. It allows you to decide if you even want to spend your time talking to this person, right? It is how I mentioned earlier that I want to talk to a proactive learner. So I would only ask my engineers to give me data of all users who have done more than 5 sessions last month. If I was doing a survey, I would have a question: how many sessions have you done last month? If they say 5+, then I will recruit them for the interview. Otherwise, I will remove them. Right? So survey is the way. Survey is the way. Screening survey. Network, share on LinkedIn, share with your friends, family, let them fill it, and then as many more people fill it, you pick few people from it. That is how I would suggest going about it. Does that make sense, Sakhi?
Sakhi, you can unmute yourself. Not sure if she's here.
Okay, no worries. I think
Yes. Thank you. That was really helpful.
Great.
Good. I'm glad. Awesome.
Okay. It's been quite an interactive session. I love the audience.
I loved the audience. Same. Loved it. Thank you for everyone who was engaging and awake.
Yeah.
Brownie points. Brownie points for you. Oh, if you come to Bangalore, I actually might get you a brownie. So ping me if you're in Bangalore.
Team Sandskriti already on the way.
Come. I'll make you brownies, Team Sanskrit. I'll not buy you brownies. We'll bake it.
Love it.
Done. What about I just wanted a quick check. How many of you are from Bangalore though?
Guys from Bangalore.
Akshar
Akshar
is
is
Bangalore. Okay. Do you have like a community channel, Shruti, somewhere?
Yes, we do. I think we've already dropped the link to the channel in the chat as well.
Okay. All right. Got
Yeah.
it. I was just curious if there are people in Bangalore, we could probably try having like a small catch up.
Yeah, for sure. We can definitely do that.
Great. Awesome. That works.
Yeah. Guys, the link to the form for submitting your problem statements has been pinned. Do submit your problem statements. We'll share it with Arpita and she'll have a look at it and you'll get all the feedbacks.
Actually, you know what we can do, Shruti? Whatever responses that are coming, right? They will be
Yeah.
anyway on Excel sheet already.
Yeah.
We can add a column in the end of that Excel sheet where I can leave comments.
For sure. Definitely we can do that.
Yeah, that would be super
Yeah.
easy. And then everyone will be able to read the comments, no?
Yeah. We can share the Excel with the participants.
Whoever's case study problem statement I would like to DM you and like see what you're doing on that project, if you are doing that project and all that. So do let me know. I get very excited when people frame good problem statements because they're going to have some crazy projects.
Yeah. Guys, I think this is a really great opportunity. So do drop your problem statements, whatever you're working on. It'll be a good feedback, if not anything else. Yeah.
For sure. I see a hand raised by Prateek.
Yes. Prateek. Just a second. Yeah.
Hi.
Go ahead, Prateek.
What's up?
No, it just so by mistakenly I have put my hand. Actually, I was looking for a comment section and just by
No,
mistakenly did it.
your camera is not on. At least we heard your voice. I am happy.
Yeah.
We are not talking to bots.